Hello, Christ our King, and welcome back to our Mental Health Moments. This is the third in a series that we're offering for Mental Health Awareness Month. My name's Cassandra Smith, and I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor and a certified grief professional. My topic is going to be on understanding the grieving brain, and I'll be sharing how to offer support without causing additional harm. This is a passion of mine because I've seen it so often in clients that have come to see me for support. So I'm really hoping that this is something that will be helpful for you. While I do acknowledge that grief comes from any type of loss, I'll be focusing on grief resulting from the loss of a loved one. I want to show a diagram, and hopefully it'll help you to have a better understanding of what it is that I am sharing. All right, so hopefully this works out on your end. You won't be able to see me for a moment, but that's okay. I'll be back. So first we're going to look at this like a relationship. So in this diagram, you see there's you, there's me, and in the middle there is we. That we, of course, is the shared life experiences. So when death occurs, it feels like not only is the person gone, but that we part is gone. It feels like all of the shared experiences are gone. So if you think about this diagram like a brain, when the death of your person occurs, it feels like the we part of the brain has been suddenly removed. Imagine a part of your brain being ripped away. That drastically changes you, and you're now having to relearn life without that part, which is no longer there. And this relearning or reorienting is a task that takes place when the griever has little capacity to actually do anything about it, little capacity to actively participate in what's going on. So I'm gonna stop sharing here. And so when we think about that, depending on the depth of the relationship between the person who died, this ripping away can be quite debilitating. So if that person had a significant role in your life, then that ripping away can just really make a person feel like they're possibly just kind of going insane, honestly, which is one of the reasons a griever often feels so emotionally overwhelmed, disoriented, and sometimes just not like themselves, because the brain is literally trying to rewire itself around a reality it never wanted, and every connection to the world now has to be relearned in some way. But please hear me when I say grief is not a mental illness. It's a normal response to a significant loss, but it can absolutely impact mental health. And if not treated kindly, it can become a mental illness. So during earlier periods of grief, emotional processing becomes far more active than intellectual reasoning, which is really, really important to understand when trying to offer support. Though that emotional part of the brain is what's most activated in the onset of grief, believers are often approached primarily from an intellectual or a theological place. They're often presented with scripture explanations, existential explanations, or words that encourage them to be okay. But they're not okay. When someone is emotionally overwhelmed, the brain often can't fully receive intellectual encouragements in that moment. Even if what's being said, what's being offered is truth, it's hard to accept that. And it's not because they don't believe it or because they don't have faith, but because the pain is far too loud for them to receive it at that time. That's why statements like, they're in a better place, or everything happens for a reason, can sometimes leave a grieving person feeling minimized, like what they're going through is not as big as what it is. So instead of feeling seen, they feel very little comfort. The problem usually isn't that what's being said isn't true, but it's the timing of what's being said. Proverbs 25:11 says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver." Scripture itself teaches us of the beauty and the wisdom in the timing of what we say. There are moments in grief, particularly early on, when what's most needed isn't to be taught or corrected, but simply to be seen, to be heard, and to be held. The grieving person often needs someone willing to acknowledge that this is awful and it feels unbearable. That type of emotional affirmation helps the brain to begin to settle enough to eventually receive and hold the truths in a meaningful way. The truth of who God is and what He can do isn't meant to harm, but to clarify and to heal and to restore. So we absolutely must remember faith and pain can exist in the same space. Faith and questions can exist in the same space. Faith and tears can exist in the same space. There's like a hierarchy of needs for the griever, and at the base of that hierarchy is the need to be allowed to experience the pain, the need to be allowed to have questions, the need to be allowed to have tears, while at the same time receiving emotional validation and support in that space. When that's in place, the brain is allowed to adapt. It becomes more capable of receiving truth in a deeper and more meaningful way. This was beautifully demonstrated when Jesus allowed questions and He shared tears with Mary and Martha before Lazarus was resurrected. This hierarchy of needs can also be seen in James chapter 2, verses 15 through 16, which reads, "Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm, and keep well fed,' but doesn't do anything about their physical needs, what good is it?" Even though in the grief hierarchy, there are mental and emotional needs at the base of the hierarchy, the principle is the same. If the basic needs are not met, encouragement to go in peace really won't do much good. So how do we support grievers, particularly grieving believers? We do so with presence, with patience, and with practical help. Sometimes it really is simply showing up with compassion and helping that griever feel seen, while the heart and the mind slowly learn how to live with what has changed so drastically. So let's show up with wisdom and well-timed truth, without adding weight to what is already so very heavy and such a burden to carry. Okay, that's it for now, and thanks for listening. Love you all, and God bless.